that Miss Marciano was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Well, live now to historian Steven Zipperstein. He is a distinguished senior fellow at the UCLA Center for Middle East Development, and he joins me live from Santa Barbara, California. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. I mean, there have been legal cases have been filed against Israel by human rights groups at the International Criminal Court and via the UN at the International Court of Justice. As a pro-Israeli legal historian, how do you think Israel should respond to these situations?
Well, Israel certainly should defend itself in these situations. As a matter of international law, Israel has very strong defenses. Israel is doing a lot, taking very, very robust steps to avoid civilian casualties. And Israel didn't start this war. This war was brought on to Israel by Hamas when they rampaged through southern Israel on October the 7th, killing, raping women, children, elderly, taking hostages back to Gaza. This will all be sorted out later. Certainly, if you look at international law, the party here that really should be in the dock in court is Hamas, not Israel.
But Mr. Zipperstein, you know, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has already said that far too many Palestinians have been killed. And just a few hours ago, President Biden had said that the hospital in Gaza must be protected. Do you feel the U.S. is starting to shift its support from Israel?
Well, the U.S. has made clear from the very beginning, that it expects Israel to comply with the rules of international humanitarian law, the laws of warfare. Israel, of course, is taking, as I said before, robust steps to ensure it complies. Just a couple of days after the war began, the Israelis were begging the residents of northern Gaza to migrate to the south, essentially saying, we don't want to hurt you. Please leave so that we can go after Hamas. And after all, Hamas has been terrorizing the innocents in Gaza, and our hearts break. How can we not watch the report earlier of babies dying in the hospital because Hamas will not share the fuel that it's hoarding in the tunnels below the hospital to power the incubators and to power the generators to provide electricity? So if you just look at both sides, Israel taking robust steps to avoid civilian casualties, Hamas, in its own words, to Al Arabiya and to Lebanese TV, proudly proclaiming that it wants to sacrifice its people. It's not responsible for their well-being, ensconcing itself in and below the hospital.
Zipperstein, I do have to break in because Hamas has said that they are delivering this necessary fuel to the hospital. And even President Biden has asked Israel for less intrusive military action, as we have seen. Now, I understand that you say you are sympathetic to the poor babies and women who have been killed in these incidents. But when does this tit for tat of these types of actions, when does it finally stop?
Well, the quickest way to stop it would, of course, be for Hamas to unconditionally release all 240 hostages they're holding. That certainly would change the dynamic. The pressure would increase for a ceasefire once the hostages are released. And I wish the protesters in London, in Europe, on the campuses here, in the universities in the U.S., would call for the release of the hostages. That would be the quickest way to stop the killing.
We have seen protesters ask for that. And if you do ask Hamas officials and people who are pro-Palestinian, they will say that hundreds of prisoners have been held by the Israeli military and government over the course of years. So, you know, one option is a two-state solution, which President Biden has said he supports. But Prime Minister Netanyahu is against this idea. But do you think there may be something to this in order for there to be peace?
I'm a strong proponent of the two-state solution. And although it's clearly not going to happen right away, the war has to end. There has to be some international arrangement for Gaza, guaranteeing Israel's security. But we all hope that down the road, the aspirations of the Palestinian people for self-determination and for statehood will be realized. And we have to just make sure that when that happens, it's done in a way that secures the safety and peace of the state of Israel.